Hey YouTube, this is Tech Reviews doing another review here. I know it's been a few years since I did my past one, but thought, what the heck, I'll do another one, and I think I'll actually put another one up in a week or so of Apple MacBook Pro. But why am I here? Okay, so I'm reviewing the Olympus Tough TG-610. This camera is an all-around killer camera. The reason I say that is right on the camera, it tells you it's tough. This camera is tough. This camera can be frozen pretty much. You can take it in freezing temperatures. You can take it in scorching hot temperatures. This camera can be dropped from 5 feet and it's rated to survive that easily. Most other cameras are something's gonna happen, the battery's gonna fall out or the screen's gonna crack or something. But somehow this camera is rated for those things. Furthermore, this camera is also waterproof down to 16 feet. And for most people doing snorkeling and just, free diving, this kind of camera is what you need. Furthermore, since I am a big time snowboarder, surfer, mountain biker, I kind of need a camera that's going to be a little bit tougher. First off, I'm going to need a camera that's waterproof for the snow and for surfing. And then for mountain biking, I'm going to need a camera that is a little bit stronger. So in case I am taking pictures while riding down the hill, nothing bad should happen to the camera. So what I want to do is talk about the features of the internal portion of the camera, and then I will talk about my opinion about each of the features. So when you turn this camera on, the start speed is fairly quick. As you can see here, right away, on. No loading screen, no logos to display or anything. It's just on. And frankly, that is a killer feature. Once you turn the camera on, there's several settings right here. It's very hard to see this because the camera is on now, but I'll cover the screen. Now you can see them a little bit better. There's different modes you can go into. So the P mode, the eye auto, the scan, the magic, panorama, 3D. So I don't know if anybody's ever had a camera that can do panorama, but typically if you want to create a panorama, you need to be familiar with using some sort of software after you import the pictures, such as Photoshop or Panorama. There's some Panorama software out there, but it's not always the easiest thing to do if you want it to look good. And this camera has a built-in ability to do that, which from my understanding is pretty cool. I've used it several times. Usually it looks pretty good, but frankly, not all the time. If you actually want to get a really good panorama, you're much better off just editing it yourself, because sometimes the edges don't line up, or somebody's head will be like a little bit crooked if they're right where the photo is stitching together the next picture. Just for review's sake, the panorama mode takes 3 pictures and then 3, and it puts them all together into one, so you have this kind of longer image. Which is a pretty cool feature. The quality is still the 14 megapixels per image. So as you can imagine, the image size is rather large, and the file size is rather large too. So it can become kind of I don't know, like a space waster almost, if you're not happy with the way the pictures are turning out. But while I'm at the space waster, I'd like to point out that this camera has a SDHC, so super high quality. It's a faster card, and it can be a larger card, so I don't really have to worry about space. But if you have an older card or a smaller card or something that is just like a smaller storage space, this camera is maybe not for you. This camera is for somebody who wants to take a lot of pictures and import them to the computer and then just back everything up. It's 14 megapixels, so it's not your little sister's little friend's camera that shoots 4.5 megapixels, has a little zoom. This camera is a powerhouse camera. This thing has 5 times optical zoom. It's got 14 megapixels. It's got all these great features to keep it alive for a while. Some of the things that would break other cameras and would say to you, man, I wish I had bought another camera or a better case or something better. You don't have to worry about that with this camera. Right now, I have this little case right here. It fits the camera like a glove pretty much. Just goes in there and you zip it up. And so pretty much I never worry about dropping the thing or spilling it, dropping it in water or anything. It's protected, which frankly to me and the way I live is the kind of camera that I need. I don't want to have to worry about dropping my camera or my cell phone or something. It's just like, I'm a teenager. Stuff is going to happen, frankly. But furthermore, let's talk about the outer case and the outer parts of the camera. Okay, so one of my friends had this camera, and this little button right there, you can see it now. That's the button to make sure that the waterproofing is locked out. If you just slip the switch over like that, it's now in the other position. And in this position, it is extremely easy to open the camera. So, for example, if you were to take this camera into the water and have it like this and accidentally just camera's open, camera's shot. Bye-bye. So, although this camera may be very durable, if the user is not very careful with the camera, there can be rather treacherous losses because of a simple failure to click the switch over, which is almost a vital necessity of the camera. If you don't do that, frankly, there could be some serious problems. Okay, and looking at the camera, I just noticed one more feature I'd like to talk about. This camera also shoots HD 720p video. It's pretty easy to use. You can basically, you don't have to go into some user mode and change a setting. You just click the little red button here and it starts recording, or if you want to take a photo, you click here. The quality is pretty good as far as video on a camera goes, but compared to a full HD camcorder, it's not the same. But you know, for sports and stuff, I'd say this is pretty good for just having it in such a small package. The zoom feature on this camera, now that I will be talking about the outside features, the zoom, it's a little frustrating to say the least. Kind of does make me mad sometimes that they couldn't have made a little bit easier zoom to push. You really have to push on the zoom, and I'm just trying to see it from their perspective, and I'm guessing the reason that you have to push a little bit more hard on this camera is because it is a waterproof camera and a shockproof camera. So a camera that has like a little touchscreen zoom or a little, like this little tiny button that you push and it just goes right in. This camera, you have to push it a little bit harder. Not to say that doesn't affect the quality or anything of this camera, but it is there. Something else that's a little bit frustrating, maybe not the most frustrating, but they do waste a whole button just on help. So what I mean by that is when you turn the camera on and you click this button right here with the question mark, it's like help and like things to help you answer questions about the camera. But frankly, because this camera is kind of an intermediate camera, I don't see why they need to put a button right on the outside. Because for me, I like this thing to be kind of just like the bare necessities, and if I need anything more, I can just go into a menu and find the help. But I guess for them, it was really important that users found out how to access all the features that this camera does have. It's a pretty strong camera. Now the outside, another thing about the outside is it has a 3-inch display. So I'm just showing you here. Actually, no, this display is not 3 inches. This display is 2.5 inches. Its big brother, the Olympus Tough, I don't know the exact model name of that one, but that one has a 3-inch display, and is even more tough. But frankly, that camera weighs a bit more. It's a bit bigger, and I was looking for something that wasn't quite as big. I wanted something that I would just be able to slide in my pocket really quickly versus a bigger, bulky camera. I've done a review on my Canon XTI Rebel in the past. That camera, I still have it. It's a great camera. I don't use it quite as much just because I only have one lens, the 28 to 75. But the reason I got this camera was because I'm going to college next year, and I needed to have a camera that was a little bit smaller and portable for school functions and other various sporting activities that I like to do. So I'd say that overall this is a great camera. When I sell my photos online, the quality needs to be very good. So I haven't actually uploaded any of the pictures from this camera yet onto the online website to sell my pictures, which by the way is iStockphoto.com. It's a free program, but can actually earn you some money. Sorry about that, talking about that during the video, but the quality on this thing is very good. When I zoom into 100%, the images are not noisy. They're more blurred. It's like they're trying to soften the picture. When you zoom back out to 25, 50%, you're not going to see these little smudges on the actual picture, but it's almost like they're like pixel blending. I don't know exactly the word, but it's not noisy. It's more just like smudged. Sometimes, like when you zoom into 100%, if that makes any sense at all. Pretty much you just have to take a picture on this thing and see it for yourself. It's not a big dilemma, but since it's 14 megapixels, I was hoping I would get the full 14 megapixels, but it seems that when I zoom into 100%, it is kind of blurred. It's not like on the Rebel XTI where 100% is just this crisp image, maybe with noise if it's dark, but on this camera it is dark. It's like a dark area on the picture. Does that make sense? It's okay. It's not in the dark portions of pictures in this camera. It's gonna be smudged. Okay, it's gonna look kind of like smudgy. Versus the XTI, it's gonna look noisy. So the light areas on this camera and the light areas on that camera are pretty much the same. The smudging isn't as bad as the dark areas, but there is still some smudging there. Okay, I saw one more thing on this camera and I just had to talk about it, and that'll be the last thing for this review. This camera has pretty flippin' amazing macro mode. I think it's almost better than the Rebel XTI. I'd say honestly, I think it is better. For the super macro mode, okay, let me just talk about this real fast. Okay, so while I go through the camera, I see that there's a macro off, a macro LED super macro mode, which actually brightens the subject and is like the ideal mode for low light super macros. And there's also just the super macro mode, and then there's just the macro mode. So let me just give an example. I can take a picture pretty much in super macro mode. I can take a picture like so flipping close to the camera, way closer than the XTI. And believe it or not, it's going to be in focus. And sometimes that's what you want. Other times that's not what you want because it's going to have a very shallow depth of field. And therefore, the camera is going to be out of focusing everything else in the picture. So it has the ability, this camera has the ability to take super, super shallow depth of field pictures for macros. It also has the ability to take relatively close pictures in macro mode, and then it has the ability to take everything else in its regular picture mode. So I'd say that this camera can take basically every kind of picture you want to take, and it has the abilities to take those pictures in almost every situation you can think of. So basically, this is pretty much the all-around camera. If you're looking for a camera that can take you underwater, way in the air, in the snow, you know, in the mountains, anywhere you really could think of, in a creek, drop your camera in a creek and still survive, hit some rocks at the bottom, and this camera will be the camera for you. Once again, this is the Olympus TUF TG-610.